Most affiliate owners can't answer these three questions. What business are you in? What game are you playing? What do you do? All right, guys, my name is Jason Fernandez, aka Fern, co-host of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast, where we have produced more than 700 podcasts solely talking about coaching and affiliate ownership inside the CrossFit space, and have worked with well over 1,000 affiliate owners all over the globe. And we are here to give you guys as much information as humanly possible. So we're working with some new content over this series, and we are going to go deep, and I mean really deep as I can possibly go on a number of topics so that we can give you guys as much information. Because at the end of the day, all we want to do is we want to help you guys build a better box. Because at the end of the day, this is what I want for you guys. Affiliate owner, to be happy, okay? If we are doing this thing where we're changing people's lives in a perfect world, we would have a great time doing it. So the whole goal with these, giving you guys all of this information, is you guys can run a great box and have as much impact as humanly possible. In this video specifically, we are going to talk about strategy, because most businesses have no strategy. And we're going to talk 30,000 foot all the way down into some tactics and how to make decisions and frameworks and a lot of things that will help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of us have made over the years. So I've had my affiliate for over 16 years, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I have made over the years, because you don't have to. And that's the whole reason that we're here. So when we're talking about strategy, guys, what we are trying to avoid is a scenario where most business owners and affiliates find themselves, which is they find themselves with some degree of success, but at the end of the day, they got there by accident. They don't know how it happened, and it's purely by coincidence. What I like to say is the ecosystem has allowed you to be there. And a gentleman by the name of Keith Cunningham came up with this scenario, which is, if you guys have ever shot guns or an arrow or played video games, you'll get the analogy. But a lot of times what affiliate owners do is, if we were thinking about shooting guns or something like that, they would shoot a shot, and at which point they have that. And then what they do after that is they go ahead and draw a bullseye around where they shot on the piece of paper. And they say, look what I did. I hit right in the middle of the bullseye. Okay. And it's completely inaccurate, right? They didn't shoot a bullseye. Something happened that they couldn't define and happened by accident. And then they declared it a victory, where we want to give you the strategy, the principles, and the frameworks so that you can draw the bullseye first, and then you can aim for the target, and then you can get there and you can have this success versus this being by accident. Okay. And all of this is dependent on whether you shoot first or you design the bullseye first. And we want you to design the bullseye first instead of shoot first. Okay, before we dive into frameworks and how to set this up, what we need to do is we need to make a very clear distinction between two things. And the distinction needs to be the difference between strategy and tactics. Okay, most people will confuse tactics for strategy, and they're very different. So I want you to think of it like this. Strategy, when we're thinking about strategy is a series of things done in order to accomplish a goal. Okay, so think broader picture. Tactics, it would be a series of moves, procedures, or maneuvers that would get me a very, very specific, minute outcome. When we're talking about strategy, we're talking about winning the war. When we're talking about tactics, we're talking about winning a battle. And not knowing the difference between these two can land you not on the target or in a very different spot than you actually want it to be. So it's really important that we understand the difference between those two, because most of us spend most of our time in the business world talking about tactics when we should be outlining strategy. Now, the other thing that's really important about this concept is, at the end of the day, execution is paramount. Okay, execution trumps strategy, but there's one caveat to that. Okay, and the caveat is this: even if you are really good at execution and tactics over a long enough period of time, even a 1 degree shift in the wrong direction will end you in no man's land. Okay, so when you think about the difference between strategy and tactics, in a perfect world, I would want tactics to be absolutely correct, and I would want my strategy to be directionally correct. So I want to make sure I'm moving in the right direction, and inside of that, I want to execute to the best of my ability. But understand, you do need both of those things. I just want to make sure that they're aligned with each other so that I can get to the desired end state. To give you guys some clear, real world examples of the difference between strategy and tactics, I'll use one from my previous background, which is the military, and I'll use another one inside of the gym space. So in the military, when we're talking about strategy, one strategy would be, if we're thinking about special operations units, we would think about something like by, with, and through. So in special forces, what they're looking at is they're looking at using indigenous or local populations, training them to do the mission for them. So it's kind of alongside or behind. Tactics would be how they assault a compound or enter a room. And those are very, very different pieces, right? So tactics is on the ground, kind of interacting with whatever that threat might be. Strategy is the overarching plan that allows me to accomplish the mission at large. Okay. Now, if we're thinking about this in the context of a business, tactics might be how I design and execute my sales system. The strategy might be how I go about placing myself in the market as a healthcare specialist or something along the lines of like, how do I get my brand out there to let everybody know that we are in the business of helping people lead better lives, right? So that's a broad strategy and how I get there, but then I need to use the tactics in order to do that. So with all of that laid out, let's talk about what I call the strategy gap dilemma. So in every business will need to cover two gaps. So the first gap is going to be the strategy gap. Okay. And the second gap is going to be the execution gap. Okay. So understanding that the strategy gap is infinitely longer than the execution gap. And again, most of us spend most of our time here in execution without sitting down and figuring out exactly what direction should we be moving in and clarifying what it is the actual goal is. So really understanding the difference between these two and understanding again, even if you are crushing on the execution side without a strategy that puts you directionally moving in the right direction, at some point in time, your execution will not matter anymore because you'll be executing in the wrong direction. Again, so if I like think about the difference between if you're looking at playing sports, right? So if I have something like I'm a basketball player and I walk onto a football field, right? My strategy for basketball is not going to work on the football field, no matter how good I am at basketball, right? Because that's a different game, right? So I'd have to have an appropriate strategy in order to play that game. Okay. So what I want to outline for you is if I'm looking at this dilemma, which is how do I balance the challenges between the strategy gap and the execution gap? What I've outlined is the 3-pillar solution for this. So if I'm trying to solve that problem of understanding the balance between the strategy gap and the execution gap, what I came up with after sitting and thinking about this for an extremely long time is every business, not just affiliate owners, need to be able to answer 3 questions. And the issue is most people can't answer any of them. And sometimes you'll find somebody that can answer at least 1 or 2 of them, but let me outline those for you now. So 3 questions that you need to answer are, number 1, what business are you in? Number 2, what game are you playing? And then number 3, what do you do? Now, first I'm going to outline what the number 1 mistake in answering these questions is. And that is most people confuse number 3 for number 1, and almost nobody can answer number 2. Let me give you an example. So for the most part, if you own a CrossFit affiliate, which if you're watching this video, you probably do, or you're a coach in an affiliate, say, what do you do? We'll say, hey, we are a CrossFit gym, meaning like that is what business you're in. We're in the fitness business. And after I'm going to give you my thoughts on this as we work through, that's not what business we're in. That's just the transaction that we have. And I'm going to give these questions to you in a different format so that you can phrase them a little bit differently. But fundamentally understanding if you apply these 3 questions, what you will find is you will come up with shockingly different answers and I apply this to every business that I look at and a lot of times. Now I look at business and I try to work through this framework. And some of the answers that you come up with are pretty surprising. And I'll give you an example. So when I'm answering that question for best hour, the answer that I came up with was pretty shocking. And it was not that we are in the gym mentoring space. We are in the retirement business. Now, you might be shaking your head and be like, that makes no sense. But here's what I'll tell you. If we do our job for affiliates, we should be setting them up to retire at some point or some sort of exit plan, whatever that might be. At the end of the day, we're all going to exit the business eventually. That's 100% guaranteed. It's like death, taxes, exiting your business. Those things are going to happen. Now, we want to make sure that people can do that on their own timeline. We want to make sure they can do it in the fashion that they want. I'm not going to dive into what that would look like right now, but understanding that when you can answer this question appropriately, it completely reframes how you interact with the client, how you communicate with people, and how you fundamentally run your team. And that's what I found out when we came to this conclusion, is that when I realized that we were not in the gym mentoring business, but the retirement business, it reframed everything that we did, right? Because we can't make short-term decisions based on that if they're a retirement business. We can't do things that are going to be detrimental for an affiliate owner just because it might be financially advantageous to us. And this helps us answer those questions and keeps us honest. Now, you're not in the gym mentoring space or in the gym mentoring business or the retirement business. You are running a CrossFit affiliate. So how would you answer this question? And the answer that I came up with is, if you run a CrossFit affiliate, you are in the hospitality business. Now, some of you might disagree with that. Now, hear me out, stay with me on this, and listen about how I came to this conclusion. So if I think about what business are you in, and I rephrase the question, I say, what is the desired outcome for the client or the customer? And when you think about the hospitality business, whether you are in high-end restaurants, whether you're in high-end hotel business, at the end of the day, when we're talking about hospitality, the whole goal with hospitality, if you've ever been to like a Ritz-Carlton or any high-end chain like that, where customer service is a huge component, if not the component of what they do, what they are trying to do is make the customer feel seen and heard, right? At the end of the day, that's all hospitality is, making sure the customer gets what they want, okay? So when we're thinking about what it is that we do, when we say what business are we in, we're in the hospitality business. When people come into the doors of your affiliate, you want to make sure that they feel seen and heard. And then what we'll do is we'll layer on, what do the other two mean? Now, so let's go to question number 2. Okay, so when we're talking about question number 2, what game are you playing? I'm going to rephrase the question to give you a better framework for it. When we say what game are you playing, what we're saying is, how do you win? Okay, again, going back to the basketball analogy, if I want to win in a game of football, I can't walk out into the football field with a basketball and without cleats and pads. It's not going to work out for me. I'm playing the wrong game at that point. Okay, and when we're talking about how do you win inside of a CrossFit affiliate, after having run my affiliate for 16 years, having been on seminar staff for 12 years, having worked with 1,000 affiliate owners, I can tell you that every affiliate owner ever struggles with one thing 100% of the time. And that is with developing their staff so that they can get off of the floor or they can reallocate their time to do the other things necessary to grow the business. So when we think about what game are you playing, or ultimately, how do you win? When we are running an affiliate, how you win is you have to understand that the game that you are playing is the coach development and retention game. So we want to develop the best coaches that we can, and that will allow us to retain clients. And these are one and the same. Almost every affiliate owner that we work with comes in, and if they've not solved the coach development problem, we can almost assuredly tell you any number of things that they're going to struggle with after that. But if you're watching this video and you've not kind of solved this problem of understanding that you are in the coach development and client retention game, this is a huge issue with regard to your strategy or lack thereof, mind you. So when we're thinking about affiliates, most of us as affiliate owners are spending too much time coaching the wrong people, meaning we spend a ton of time on the athletes and we don't spend enough time on developing our coaches. Now, this is really important because getting off of the floor or adding another person into the coaching flywheel of your business is one of the first things that you'll have to do to even talk about something that would look like scale inside of your affiliate. I'm going to have to add another coach onto the floor. And you'll continue to have that problem over time. And if you think about, if you bring in somebody who your skill level is here and their skill level is here, that gap is going to be very obvious to many of the clients. So I want to make sure that I understand that I've got an incredible process and system for developing coaches so that it does not matter who's on the floor, that the clients are going to get a great experience. Now, the jokes might be a little bit different. They might run their classes a little bit different. They might have different playlists. All of those things are fine. But at the end of the day, their skill sets match, meaning they're here. They're just different flavors of the same skill set. If you can do that, then having great coaches and understanding that your job is to make the best coaches possible will ultimately help you to retain clients for a longer period of time. Because at the end of the day, you cannot be all things to all people inside of your affiliate. You have to be able to bring in people that can fulfill in your absence. Whether you want to be on the floor 20 hours a week or 5 hours a week, there's still a class load that needs to be filled, and we want to make sure that we have the best coaches humanly possible. So understanding what game you are playing ultimately helps you solve a lot of different problems. It also helps you figure out where you should be allocating your time and resources and what are the most important things to solve long-term problems. So if you guys have questions about this, this is something that we help affiliate owners with all the time. Affiliate owners every day show up, and being able to develop their coaches, whether it's from scratch or being able to take a mid-tier coach to a high level, is something that almost every affiliate owner struggles with. And this is a huge component of what we do inside of Affiliate University. So there's 2 tracks. We've got the business development track and then the coach development track. being able to manage both of those as a business owner is a huge component and a huge indicator of your long-term success. If you have questions about that, click the link somewhere around this video and we'd be happy to have a discussion with you about how we can help. Now, let's talk about question number 3. So the third question is, what do you do? Again, said another way, what is the financial transaction that's being had? And this is actually the easiest one. And this is the one that people kind of gravitate to because it's the most obvious. And inside of the CrossFit affiliate, what do we do? Well, that answer is pretty obvious. We do CrossFit. Okay? And this is really important because if we think about this CrossFit thing, and the beauty of being a CrossFit affiliate owner is, I personally believe that there is no more effective methodology in the world than CrossFit, meaning with regard to getting people results. So if we think about CrossFit and we think about developing people's level of fitness, and I don't mean the arbitrary definition of fitness, what we're talking about is getting people results. And CrossFit gets people results via this mechanism that is fitness, right? The way we've defined fitness, which is work capacity across broad time and middle domains. So the beauty of this whole thing of what it is that you do is getting people results is baked into the cake. We don't have to come up with some super secret formula. It's already done, right? It's baked into what we do. It's baked into all of the beautiful things that Coach Glassman gave us to us years ago. And we get to use this mechanism or this methodology that is CrossFit to give people results. So again, that's the easy part of this whole thing. Is so if I'm doing CrossFit, arguably even at a poor level, people are still going to get fit. I know that's how I started back in 2007. I did not move well. I did not have any background in Olympic weightlifting. I had some exposure to it as a collegiate athlete, but I didn't really know how to snatch. And I got really fit over those first few years, right? And I was coming off of being a collegiate athlete. I was already pretty fit, but understanding like the beauty of this whole monster that is CrossFit is like the results are part of what it is that we already do. So we don't have to worry about that. And again, this is the beauty of the whole thing. What do you do? We do CrossFit. Again, when you say what do you do, what is the financial transaction? They pay you money, you give them training, which is fitness, and therefore getting them results. So again, going back to those 3 questions, what business are you in? What game are you playing? And what do you do? When we can answer those 3 questions, which is what business are we in? Hospitality. What game are we playing? We're in the coach development and client retention game. And then what do you do? CrossFit. Now we can start to frame how we interact with our clients, because there's a different answer that you come up with than when you say I'm in the hospitality business, whether you say I'm in the gym business. And just by saying those out loud, you could see how you come to very different conclusions and how you would structure your processes, your systems, your client journey very, very differently when you answer those 2 questions, right? So understanding that framework allows you to really set and chart a path that allows you to communicate more clearly with not only yourself, but your staff so that you can get the desired outcome that you're looking for inside of the business, but ultimately for your clients moving forward. Okay, now to hammer this point home just a little bit more, I want to talk about number 2. So if you're running a business, what you're always trying to figure out is how do I win in business? And at the end of the day, winning is just being able to open your doors tomorrow and then doing that day after day after day after day. So when we're talking about what game are we playing, AKA developing great coaches that then allow me to retain great clients, I want to talk to you guys about something that we made several years ago, and this is the 50-50 model. So when we think about the 50-50 model, just think of it as a pie. And on the left side of the pie over here, I've got sales, I've got marketing, and then I've got operations. The other side of the pie is your service. Now, what is your service? Your service is what your coaches do between 0 and 60 when people step onto the floor. That's backed up by client retention practices, how you interact with clients, not only when they're on the floor, but when they're off the floor, when they're at home, because we know that we've only got them 1 out of the 24 hours of the day. And I love this model because it really emphasizes how important making great coaches is inside of your success. So I want to give you guys another example. So if we think about this in the context of restaurants, no matter how good the waitstaff is, if the food is really poor, you're not going to go back to that restaurant, right? And if the food is really good, but the waitstaff is really poor, you're only going to go to that business for so long. So there was a restaurant here in Virginia Beach that we went to for years. It's closed down now, so I can say the name of it, but it was called Lubo. So they had a great wine selection. The food was really good, and we would go there all the time. And like clockwork, every single time, the service would be terrible, meaning the food would not get there on time, the orders would be wrong, but we dealt with it over and over and over because the wine list was great and the food was really good, even if it was the wrong food. And then finally, we had just had enough. Like we had enough of being there for 4 hours when we wanted to be there for two, or having to get the orders wrong. And eventually we just stopped going there. And then that restaurant closed, and it didn't have to close. It didn't have to close because they had all of the opportunities to be a great restaurant. They just couldn't get the service right. And I think about that in context of a gym. If you cannot get the service right, it doesn't matter how good your sales processes are, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is, and it doesn't matter how streamlined your operations are. At some point, people are not going to want to be on the floor with your coaches training every day. And this is where this is a truth teller. When you are not really good at coaching CrossFit, it is going to be the death of you. And this is why we harp so much on being a developer of great coaches. We get asked questions all the time like, hey, how do I find good coaches? And to my answer is like, you do not find them. If in fact you could find one, you probably couldn't afford to pay that great coach what they're worth to come work for you anyway. You have to shift that mindset and get into the business of making great coaches. And this is something that we pride ourselves with at CrossFit Rife. And this is something we try to help affiliate owners with all the time. Is like, your job is to create great coaches and to have a train of great coaches, meaning like I can take somebody from nothing to really good in a certain amount of time. Now, if you've been doing this a little bit longer, you can do it a little bit faster, right? But at some point, you have to make that shift away from, hey, I'm here to train athletes, to say, I'm here to train coaches who then train the athletes. And what this does, it gets you out of a victim mentality with regard to not being able to find great coaches and puts you in the driver's seat and say, that's my responsibility to make great coaches so that they can serve the clients, they get the results that they want to, and therefore we can have the impact that we were driving for. Okay, so let's dive into the weeds just a little bit with regard to this idea of coach development and how this maps into your overall strategy. So when we think about coaches and how they fit into the business and our long-term strategy, the first thing you have to understand is there are multiple risks inside of any business. And if I want to succeed in business, the first thing I'm trying to do is mitigate those risks. And if I want to mitigate them, the first thing I have to do is understand what those risks might be. So inside of the CrossFit affiliate, the coach is going to be one of your first, what we call key man risks, right? So Alex Hormozy has talked about this. Keith Cunningham kind of had this first idea, well over a decade ago. And what we mean by key man risk is the coach is going to be one of the first people that you're going to have to bring in, meaning a secondary coach that's going to have to fulfill a role inside of the business, meaning like they are a key component of fulfilling that role or that task. And we have to understand is if I'm not great at developing great coaches, I'm automatically increasing my risk by not understanding that if I have somebody who is subpar on the floor, this is not actually helping me in the business. This is actually increasing my risk in the business. Now, if I am understanding that I'm in the coach development space, now that I can understand how the relationship between coach and retention works. So let's dive into not necessarily some numbers, but some values or some metrics inside of the business. When we look at retention, retention is one of the number one things, if not the number one thing that we look at in order to determine an affiliate owner's success long term. Meaning, tell me the retention, I can make some very strong assumptions about what is going on currently and then probably what's going to be happening in the future. When we think about retention, if we think about some business metrics, if we think about lifetime gross profit, if we think about lifetime value, if we think about average client value, if we think about cost of acquisition, these first two, lifetime gross profit and lifetime value, we could even throw leg in there, so length of engagement. All of those have a direct correlation to your retention. Now, if we look at average client value and cost of acquisition, those have indirect correlation to your retention. If I have really, really good retention, it is highly likely that I have a higher average client value. And it's highly likely that I have a lower cost of acquisition, because if I have really happy clients, then I can really maximize things like referrals, at which point your cost of acquisition comes down dramatically. So understanding how all of this fits together in your overall strategy, how the coach is going to be your first key man risk, and then how that impacts your retention and those business metrics that you're trying to drive is very, very important. And if you don't put all of these things together, again, now we are no longer directionally correct in our strategy. Even if you are executing well and don't understand this relationship, on a long enough timeline, things will fall apart and the business is going to struggle immensely. Okay, now let's talk about how this fits in your overall strategy. And this, to some degree, is talking about understanding your business model. So if we think about a CrossFit affiliate versus a big box gym, we have to think about what those two business models look like. So Let's start with the big box gym. So if we think about a Gold's Gym, 24-hour fitness, again, we're not poo-pooing on those brands, but just understand the business models are very different. What those business models are designed are on very low usage and low dollars, right? Meaning they're not charging a ton of money, and they actually would prefer that people don't come into the gym. So the average Planet Fitness is something to the tune of 4,000 to 5,000 clients. If they had anything remotely close to even 50% usage, they would be inoperable, meaning like they could not facilitate 2,000 people walking into that gym every single day and having any sort of value provided to anybody, because it would just be too crowded. Okay. And when we think about the CrossFit affiliate, that model is completely different. So when we're thinking about usage, I want extremely high usage inside of the CrossFit affiliate, meaning if we have 50% usage or less, or even remotely close to 50% usage, that's going to be a red flag. We'll talk about a little bit more about that in another video, but I want high usage. I want 60, 70, 80% usage on a daily basis. And I'm also charging, relatively speaking, a higher dollar threshold when compared to a big box gym. So understanding the difference between these two models and how that then dictates how we design and how we work with our staff and the strategy that we use. I'm not in the low usage, low dollar game. And if I'm trying to have a CrossFit model and compete in this game, there's a ton of skill sets that I don't have. Most of these have really, really good client acquisition channels. Most affiliates do not, meaning you're starting with a handful of people and then you're building that based on word of mouth. So when I recognize that I am in the high usage and high dollar figure game, this really starts to re-emphasize how important it is to make sure that the people on the floor delivering the service that is your CrossFit gym are really, really good at the craft. Because if I cannot get them to deliver that mechanism effectively, this high usage is not going to be there. And we see this time and time again. CrossFit gyms that struggle do not have high usage, meaning that they are not having a large percentage or an appropriate percentage of their people come in every single day. And the reason that's a problem is because this dollar figure is too high for low usage. We all know it. People are not going to pay $150, $200 to go to the gym 3 times a month. They will spend $29 over here for months on end, if not years, because that dollar figure does not matter to them. I'm not in the business of telling anybody what is or what is not a lot of money, but we just know based on how these two models work that if you do not have high usage, that dollar threshold is too high to keep that membership running. How do you get them to come in? I need to make sure that they're looking forward to coming in. And that means that we need to have really, really great coaches delivering a really, really solid product on the floor so that we can keep them coming back time and time again. So understanding this relationship and looking at business model, again, reframes and redirects your efforts with regard to your strategy moving forward so that you can focus on the things that matter most. Now, here's the catch. If you want to be in the development of coaches and client retention game, I'm here to tell you something that is just a hard truth. That is hard, meaning I have to spend years and years developing my own craft and then spend years after that learning to transfer that knowledge to other people. And having been through that process, again, having owned my gym for 16 years, having, 3 level 4s on my staff and multiple other level 3s in there, I can tell you that that is hard. Okay. And this is something that inside of Affiliate U, we're trying to give you guys access to the best in the business. This is why we have a lot of people that own seminar staff, flow masters, red shirts, because we understand that's a long journey. Most of the people that we have teaching gym owners and their staff how to do this thing that is Coach CrossFit have 10,000 hours underneath their belt. Okay. And understanding that that is going to take time and that it is hard is something that you have to accept, because if you don't accept that, you're going to have bad expectations with regard to how long something is going to take. However, I will tell you this: once you make that shift from thinking, hey, I'm in the kind of gym business instead of, or just trying to train clients, to developing coaches, that shift alone will help you propel your business forward, because you're going to start redirecting time and energy to the right places so that you can amplify your effect across multiple people and not just yourself. All right, guys, if you like this content, please subscribe to the podcast, but understand we work with affiliates. If you are interested in building your business, understanding strategy, building a better community, and building better coaches and careers for them, hit the link somewhere around this video, and we'd love to have a call with you.
I get asked all the time, what gym software should a gym owner use? And the short answer is, I don't care. What I care about is that companies like PushPress design software that helps gym owners run better businesses. So if you're working with a software company, you're not happy, and you don't know what to do with the information that software gives you every single day, check out PushPress. They've got built-in systems like the 180-day journey that we helped them build inside of PushPress Grow that'll help you interact with your clients at a better clip in order to improve your retention. So if that's something you're interested, reach out to those guys at PushPress and help you run a better box today.
Now, inside of the struggle, the first thing we have to understand when I'm developing a strategy is if I'm going to design the strategy and I want to get where I want to go and I want to build a great team, we'll cover this model multiple times, but understanding how to manage yourself. So every leader has to manage in 5 directions. So when we think about this is you as a leader, or me for that matter, I have to understand what are the directions with which I need to manage. So let's walk through some of the basic ones. So if I think about up, right? So up could be something like I want to manage up towards the strategy that I have developed, right? Meaning like I've set the framework and I'm leading up towards that strategy. It's a check and balance. If you have either a mentor or somebody that you're working with, that's another way you would need to lead up, meaning like there's some sort of accountability above you, whether that's a strategy that you've made or somebody that you're working with. Now, in is going to be with your team, right? I need to manage inward to make sure that everybody's on the same page, marching to the beat of the same drum. Out is going to be outward to the market. How are you leading outward to the market? What is the message that you are communicating? How are you representing your brand and pictures that you post, the messages that you do, and social media, email campaigns, all that stuff. And then down is going to be towards your clients, how you are managing and interacting with your clients. What's the message? What's the directive? What's the education that you're managing and sending out to all of those different components, right? So I've got these 4 different directions, right? So I've got up, meaning that could be strategy mentors. I've got M, that's towards the team. I've got out, this is towards the market, and I've got down towards the client. And then inside of that, the leader has to manage themselves, and you have to manage that in combination with managing these all 4 directions. And the reason that this is really important is if you do not have a clear strategy, you do not understand the game that you're playing, you don't understand the model that you're building, it's really hard to manage in any direction, much less manage yourself. I'm going to be giving mixed messages. Things are going to be unclear. There's going to be loss in translation across a ton of different stuff. So understanding first, getting clear on what is the strategy, what is it that I'm doing, what am I trying to build, what is the desired outcome that I'm looking for. I can then map out who inside of this whole ecosystem I need to be managing, and where and what direction I need to be managing and when. And this is a really simple model for understanding what direction am I responsible as a leader to be leading in, whether that's up, in, out, down, or myself. So, but again, first you have to outline the strategy, because if you have the strategy, this becomes significantly easier. Okay, so we've covered strategy, we've covered a little bit about managing yourself, but hopefully we've gotten really, really clear on the things that we should be looking at with regard to 30,000 foot level so that we can be moving directionally correct. But now I want to get into, when we talk about strategy, I also need to have strategy with regard to managing risk. I talked about it earlier with regard to every business has a series of risks inside of their business they need to mitigate. And then inside of that, first it's IDing what those risks are, but then I need to have a strategy for making decisions that involve risk. So what I want to introduce you guys to is something called Ansoff's Matrix, right? So this could be called a standard BCG matrix or a product matrix. And really what we're going to be outlining here is inside of the products or services that I offer, how do I make a determination on where to move and direct my time and resources? So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to number the quadrants. So when you're looking at 2x2s or you're looking at this matrix, you're going to number them this way. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when we're looking at this matrix, once I've numbered them, first understand where you live in the matrix. And this is you. And you're happy, and we want you to stay that way. So outlining this is going to help you in that process. Let's start with quadrant number 1. And this is reserved for R&D, so research and development. Now, what does that look like? Otherwise stated, we're not talking about like big pharma or technology companies, but anything that has high capital investment, meaning it's going to cost you a lot of money or it's going to cost you a lot of time to get that thing up and running. So if we're talking about this in the context of a CrossFit gym, this might be you decide you wake up one morning and you decide you're going to start a lifestyle apparel brand or a coffee company, meaning you're going to have to invest a ton of time and money into that before that thing ever gets off the ground and you sell your first thing. Okay. So largely what I would tell you is do not go here. It's a bad idea. That is reserved for a select few that largely have large followings that they can take their current thing and then they can just flip it over into a new market. So if you're thinking about Mayhem is a great example of this, where they have a following, they make a new thing, and then they can flip their entire audience over into that thing and it has a high likelihood for success. It's not guaranteed, but it has a high likelihood for success. Now, we move over to number 2, what we're looking at, these are new markets. Meaning these are people that you do not currently serve. So inside of the context of a CrossFit gym, we're looking at something like corporate wellness, masters, kids programs. Again, not people that fall inside of my ideal target audience currently, but I could take my thing and then go offer it to a new segment of the population. If I move over to 4, these are going to be new services. Okay. Now, this is going to be selling additional products or services to my current clientele. So these would be things like nutrition, programming, personal training. So once you understand how this matrix works, if you want to do it more simply, if I want to move from 3 to 2, what we're talking about is more wallets, meaning I want to sell to more people. If I want to move this direction, what we were talking about is bigger wallets. Right? I want to sell more things to the people that I already currently serve. Okay. Now, if I outline this matrix, you guys probably get a pretty good idea of like where different things inside of the CrossFit affiliate might live. And the reason this matrix is really important is this. At some point in every CrossFit affiliate owner's life, they're going to be faced with, I'm sitting here and for whatever reason, some shiny object has shown up to my door, very much looking like the good idea fairy. And I have to make the decision to move in a given direction. Okay. Meaning I need to move to more wallets and sell to a new market, or I'm going to sell new services. Or if I'm really, got a hair up my ass for really poor decisions, I would move into matrix or quadrant number 1 and move into something that would look like R&D. I can tell you, having done that, that is a terrible, terrible idea. Many years ago, I decided to do many things, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I would have been able to avoid that had I been armed with this matrix that would allow me to assess the risk appropriately, and I would have not made those decisions at the time that I made them. Now, inside of this, when you're looking at these different matrices, there's a couple things that you need to understand about. Let's just assume that you're not going to be a dummy and you're not going to go to quadrant 1. And you're saying, okay, well, then I'm either going to go to 2 or 4. I'm going to go to new markets, I'm going to sell to different segments, or I'm going to make another product or service and I'm going to sell it to my clients. What are the requirements that would allow me to be successful inside of making that move? So let's start with new markets first. If I'm going to go to new markets, the requirements for new markets is that you need to have your sales and marketing dialed in. Okay. If you are at all struggling in sales and marketing where you are currently sitting, moving to new markets is not going to help you. All you're going to do is you are going to double your problems because you're going to need to be infinitely better to move to a new segment in order to be successful in that new market, right? So if you're not currently getting what you want out of your current offering and you think that new markets is going to solve your problem, I quite frankly have never seen it work. Not saying that it's a bad idea. It doesn't typically work because people aren't armed with the skill sets to move in that direction and be successful in doing so because they've not recognized where their deficiencies lie. Okay, so understand that if you're going to move in that direction, sales and marketing need to be a layup for you. You need to be just selling your face off. Selling people at high ticket offers, selling a lot of people is something that you do every single morning, and you eat that stuff for breakfast. So if you wanted to move that direction, these would be the requirements. Now, if you wanted to move to new services, the requirements here are going to be very high customer satisfaction, and great retention. If you do not have happy customers and they are not staying for a long time, selling new things to people that are unhappy is also going to be what we're going to call a bad business decision. It's going to be very, very hard for me to take people who are meh about my current offering and then sell them new stuff. So I've currently had this happen to me. Like I had an accountant years ago who was doing a poor job, and they started selling me courses and all the other stuff. And I said, stop selling me these new things. You're currently not giving me the core offering that I'm asking for. Stop trying to sell me on new stuff. I'm not going to buy it. All he had to do was make me very, very happy. And then I would have probably bought whatever he sold me after that. So understand, if you're going to sell new stuff, it's really important that you do a really good check on how happy are your clients and what does your retention look like. If both of those are through the roof, I would probably move in this direction first if I move there at all. Now, what I would tell you is most CrossFit affiliates should probably just stay here. Now, what that looks like is more referrals and better marketing. Now, I want to tell you guys a real quick story about how this all maps out. So, my previous profession was inside of the Navy, and I drove big naval ships. And inside of that, you have to get what's called an officer of the deck qualification. So what that looks like is you have to go through a long stint of studying. You have to learn everything about the ship, and whether it be weapons, whether it be casualty procedures, all that stuff you have to know. And then you have to know how to drive the ship and how driving a gigantic 300 to 400, 500 foot ship would actually work. And when you go sit in front of the officer of the deck board, all the department heads sit in this room, and then they just pepper you with questions that are scenario based or technically are very technical in nature. And you do this for about 3 hours, and it's a pass fail evolution. And one of the scenarios that they give you inside of that is kind of akin to the Kobayashi Maru, if you guys are Star Trek nerds. And what they're saying is that this is an unsolvable problem. So the scenario looks something like this. This is my very poorly drawn ship on this really, really crappy ocean. And you are on your ship and you're sailing merrily along through the ocean, and you're trying to go this direction. And the scenario that they present you with is a series of other ships out in front of you that are moving at different speeds and at different distances, right? So some are further out, some are moving faster, some are moving slower. And what they are trying to figure out is, like, what decision are you going to make given all of these variables inside of there? And what they don't tell you beforehand is that this is not a solvable equation. There is no way to solve for this, right? Because no matter what you do, whether you speed up, whether you slow down, whether you turn, a collision is almost guaranteed in this scenario. What they are looking for you to do is not go forward. They don't actually want you to go forward. That is the wrong idea. What they want you to do is turn the ship around, give yourself more time to reevaluate the problem so that all of these are off the table and you have nothing but clear oceans in front of you. And that is very similar to the risk matrix, right? So when we think about Ansoff's matrix and what is actually the best course of action inside of moving from quadrant to quadrant, it actually looks like this. You sit here and you have to make this decision to move to new markets or new services. Again, let's assume that you're not going to be a dummy and you're not going to move to quadrant 1. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I will tell you is, just like the Kobayashi Maru, it's a false choice. You do not have to move in any one of those directions. What most affiliate owners should do is they should stay right here and they should deepen market penetration. I have yet to see an affiliate that has actually done anything that looks like actual market penetration. Now, again, what does that look like? It looks like this. Again, it looks like more referrals, better marketing, and doing things like JVs or joint ventures, right? All of these things will solidify your space inside of the market, because I understand the whole point of having this matrix here is to understand that moving in any one of those other directions involves more risk. Inside of a business, I'm almost never trying to increase the amount of risk that I'm looking at when I'm running a business. It's just almost never a good idea. There's going to be enough risk just operating your business. You don't need to add more risk, particularly adding it in a scenario in which you're ignorant, meaning like you're not even aware that you have a lack of skill sets. You're not even aware that your customers aren't happy. And even if they are happy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should go to quadrant 4 and sell them more stuff. The question that I ask every affiliate owner ever that we work with, and this is something that we help people with all the time inside of Affiliate University, because they show up to our doorstep with shiny new things and the good idea fairy has bitten them in the ass. They say, hey, should I do X or Y? The question that I ask them is, why do you want to do that? And the answer, the only answer I've ever gotten is because they want more money. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with wanting more money, right? But understand that money that you're chasing by moving to 4 or to 2 comes with a tremendous amount of risk. The money that you will get out of staying in quadrant 3 and improving your skill sets comes with almost no risk. It also scales significantly faster than moving in the other 2 directions. So when you're looking at how you're going to do this, it's almost always better to stay in quadrant 3, go back to the basics, just like Coach Glassman told us to, revisit those, shore up any weaknesses that you have inside of that, and you will be much better off in the long term. Because again, you're not trying to increase the amount of risk you have in your business. Plenty of it exists there already. You either don't know it's there, or it's there and you're ignoring it because it's not sexy. And trust me, I understand the allure of the sexiness of going to new markets or trying to sell new stuff. It seems fun. It seems really exciting. It's the sexy stuff. It's the stuff that you get really excited and you wake up out of bed trying to solve for. Staying in quadrant 3 is not sexy, but what I will tell you is staying in quadrant 3 is highly effective. Anytime we redirect people back to the main thing, almost always their business improves exponentially just by doing that. And again, it's not going to cost you any more money or increase any risk inside of your business. And that is the name of the game. Okay, so we've gotten clear on how to start to develop a strategy, where kind of tactics and strategy diverge and where they should be aligned. We've talked about how to assess risk. We've talked about how to lead yourself. And I actually want to come back to the Ansoff Matrix. And if one of the things that you didn't come away with from that is not necessarily just the decision-making process and how you would outline that is, but answering this one question, which is, what is the biggest risk inside of your business? And the answer is this: it's you, right? It's not the market. It's not anything else. Understanding that the biggest risk in any business is the person driving, meaning they're not paying attention, they don't know things, they're not listening, whatever. It doesn't matter. All of those things are different versions of understanding that you are the biggest risk in your business. The worst things that have ever happened to my affiliate were because of me. I could have just not made the decisions and I would have been way better off. Again, years ago, about 8 years ago, I decided to buy another affiliate, open a boutique gym, and then buy a cryotherapy machine because I thought I was going to get into the recovery space. All of those businesses failed, right? Statistically impressive, 100% of them failed, right? It was like, good for me. I was forced to consolidate all of those back into CrossFit Rife. And what I figured out was I could have done all of those inside my current affiliate and would have cost me almost nothing to do them there, right? And again, the biggest risk in that scenario was me. I didn't know what I didn't know. Again, there's no new stuff out there. There's just things that you don't know yet. And that's what we're trying to help you with. That's the whole reason that we built Affiliate U and the whole reason that we work with the gym with affiliate owners all over the world. So if you guys need help with that stuff, let us know. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Now, let's talk about how do I take this and start to transition this into tactics, right? So we've started at this large idea that strategy is really, really important, but we do want to emphasize that execution is king, right? Execution is something that you must learn to master as a business owner. So when we're talking about how do I start to take all of these concepts and execute them, give you something very, very simple, which is kind of like setting up your calendar, but based on all of these things that we looked at with regard to strategy and understanding what it is that you do. So before we get into setting up a calendar, I want to introduce something that we call PVBs, right? So what PVBs are perceived value builders. If I can't spell, give me a break. Okay. Now, what are perceived value builders, right? What we know is that CrossFitters specifically, all of them, and I mean absolutely all of them, they like one or more of 3 things, right? They either love programming, right? Meaning they love training. They love the social aspect of it, right? And that goes to why every gym owner ever would say, hey, what's differentiate you from the gym down the street? And they say coaches and community. Probably not, but I get why you came up with those answers. So we got to understand what people want. They love training. They love the social aspect of it. Or number three, they like stuff, right? All CrossFitters ever like stuff. You grab any one of your members, you look in their gym bag, and there is a hodgepodge of stuff inside that bag. Knee sleeves from 2008. They've got 48 jump ropes, 5 different types of thumb tape, 2 weight belts, everything under the sun. We got to understand that if we know what people like and we can match that with our strategy, we can come up with an ideal outcome with regard to executing the strategy and getting into tactics. So I'm going to use something that if you're watching this and you've watched any of our content, you're probably familiar with a lot of our training background, which is from seminar staff. So I really hope to God that at some point you've written a lesson plan. So when we're thinking about planning out a year, it's very similar to writing out a lesson plan. So let's start with a basic lesson plan. So if I was writing out a class lesson plan, it would be 0 and 60, but this is not a class lesson plan. This is going to be a calendar, right? So when you're laying this out, we're just going to do January to December because that makes the most sense. But understand if you're watching this video and it's July, just start at July and then come all the way back to June, and you can just run this whole thing out. Now let's just go February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and I've got all the months laid out on this timeline. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to take the things that people like and map those with my strategy. Okay, so thinking about how do I look at all of this from a 30,000 foot level and then start to lay out a plan in order to help make my clients happier and grow my gym. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. So when we're thinking about that, if I've got training, social, and stuff, I can start to bake these things into the calendar, right? From an event standpoint. And there's ultimately 2 things that you're trying to achieve when you're laying all of this out. One is just I'm using events to drive retention. And number 2, I can attach sales targets to those events. Okay. So when you're laying this out, always start smaller, right? So you're not going to have 12 events on the calendar. That's going to be way too much. You'll probably miss on half of them, at which point you'll get discouraged and then you won't do it the next year. So I tell most people who are laying this out, start with 4 to 6 events, probably 2 to 3 big events, and then have some minor events inside of that. So when we look at this, let's use some stuff in here that almost everybody kind of has on their calendar, whether they know it or not. But let's just say this January, February, kind of like March right here. Let's say the open happens right here, right? So a couple different things can happen inside of the open. I can sell merch. I can have people bring in their friends, but understand that this is a huge 3-week kind of running component, at least in its current state at the open, that it allows us to showcase the best parts of the community. Now let's just say that most gyms are going to be doing something that resembles a holiday party over here, right? Meaning I'm going to have a big get together at the gym. And then let's just say you do some sort of summer event. So let's just go March, April, May. So for us at CrossFit Rife, we do kind of a big event that's unique to us, which is we do a crawfish boil because it's unique. And we really like this stuff to get everybody together, right? So these are going to be what I call my big pillar events inside of the calendar. So these are things that I know are going to happen like clockwork every single year. They're not really going to move on the calendar very much. Those are going to be fixed components of how we structure our planning and everything inside of Deepening. And if I've got those on there, well, now I can start to outline the smaller, kind of less burdensome events on the calendar. So if you listen to any of our content, you know that one of the most effective strategies that we teach people with regard to organic growth is something called Bring a Friend Week. I'll dive into the specifics of Bring a Friend Week in a later video, but let's just say that we're going to do 2 or 3 of those. Let's say I'm going to do a Bring a Friend Week here. Let's say I'm going to do maybe another one on the back of the crawfish boil. I'll do another one here. And then I'll do one in the fall, somewhere around when everybody's coming back to school here, right? So these are all kind of growth targets, right? So I can invite people to the crawfish boil that have not been there before. I can try to get people to bring in their friends for the open. I can bring their spouses and friends to the holiday party. I'm going to run these big lead generators that is Bring a Friend Week on the calendar. And outside of people just hitting your website, you can start attaching sales targets to these or lead targets to these, and you could come up with a really solid number that you could shoot for. So let's just say that you're going to have 25 people come in for each one of your Bring a Friend week, which from all the gyms that we work with, that'd be an average or maybe even a low number. But I've got 25, 50, 75. And let's go with very conservative numbers for these other events. Let's just say 5 for each of them. So then I've got 80, 85, 90. That's 90 people, warm leads, which are going to be your cheapest leads, that I'm going to have the opportunity to bring in order to maximize my event calendar. And then you can start to bake in a ton of other stuff in here. Now, all of this is wrapped around your strategy, meaning like I'm putting together events. We didn't even get into the training there, right? So all we did was, well, training is in the open, the holiday party is a social, the crawfish boil is a social, and you can sprinkle in some other stuff in there. But the point is this. The point is I understand who we are, what we're trying to do. I understand what it is that we're trying to achieve and how we're going to maximize that. And I understand that I'm going to need a short, medium, and long-term strategy in order to execute this. And I'm going to use a skill set that I already have, which is writing a lesson plan, to then lay that over top of my business to figure out what I should be doing and when. And this allows me to be forward thinking instead of rearward thinking. Because in a business, if I'm only looking at things that happen behind me, it's a really bad strategy. It's like driving down the road, looking in your rearview mirror, you're bound to have an accident. I want to be looking forward. So I know what's coming up 30, 60, 90 days in the future, and I can start promoting those. I can start making sure that we're prepared. If we're going to do something like Bring a Friend Week, right? Understand that having success inside of Bring a Friend Week means that your coaches need to be dialed in. Going back to how do you win? You have the best coaches possible so that when those people come in, it doesn't matter if they have any CrossFit background. If you have great coaches, they'll be able to sort that out, and you can manipulate your programming in order to optimize and maximize their experience inside of that week. But to get into some of the technical components or the tactics, first understand what people want, right? And then give them what they want, right? Step number 2, give them what they want. Step number 1, find out what they want. Step number 2, give them what they want. And this is a very simple means of giving people what they want, but it's all done under this overarching theme of what is my strategy inside the gym? What am I trying to achieve? And you could see very clearly how I could attach this idea of I am in the hospitality business to all of these. How do I treat people when they come into the gym? How am I facilitating the open? What am I doing for my holiday party? All of these can be done through the lens of what business that am I in? And then how do I win? Well, I make sure that my coaches are prepared to give them the best possible experience when they come in because they think CrossFit is dangerous when it's really not. It's just executed poorly because we have poor coaches. So I can start to get my coaches dialed in to execute Bring a Friend Week better. And again, all of this is already baked into the cake, which is what do? It's CrossFit. Okay. So getting into some of the tactics, and you can get really into the weeds and all this stuff, but I want to give you guys basic principles and a basic framework to take the strategy idea and bring it all the way down to your calendar so that you can lay out a 12-month plan so that you can execute that. Because there is nothing more fun than running through the year and thinking at the end of the year, man, like that was pretty easy. Let's add another thing on top of that. And then all this goes back to doing the basics really, really well. And the way that you do that is by understanding what a sound strategy is, executing that strategy flawlessly, refining it again over and over and over, understanding who your clients are, and then revising that over and over and over again, because what you did last year should not be what you do next year. You should continue to make micro improvements and improve it every single year. And a really good litmus test that I use at CrossFit Rife, and we use for affiliates is I should try to run through the year and I should be able to add things on to the following year, and it should feel like we're running at the same threshold. It shouldn't feel any harder the following year. We should have gotten everything buttoned in because we're clear on execution, we're clear on strategy, and then I can layer on another set of events, another set of sales processes, another set of training for my staff, and it shouldn't feel any harder than anybody else. Again, just like fitness, what's better than doing a 3-minute Fran? Doing a 3-minute Fran and it feeling like you were moving at a 5-minute pace. Okay. So that's what we're looking for inside of the affiliate. And this is a tactical variation of that. Okay. So I want to button all of this up with this thought, right? So we've walked through a ton of stuff with regard to frameworks for strategies, how to manage yourself, how to analyze risk, how to move that into a tactical scenario. And there's kind of 2 components of strategy. One, it should tell you where you're going, but think of it in the context of giving a workout brief. So if I'm briefing the workout Fran, there's a difference between me saying Fran is a 4 to 8 minute workout than me saying, hey, this is not a 12-minute workout. I've painted an entirely another picture over here with that, and I've created more clarity with that. And what I'm trying to say with all of that is a well-executed strategy should tell you where you're going. But arguably more important, it should tell you what you shouldn't be doing. Because what I will tell you is the most effective affiliate owners know this. The best affiliate owners know how to say no. And this is one of the things, probably the most important muscle that you will need to learn to flex as a business owner is saying no. When a good idea walks into your door, you need to be able to tell it no. Now, the way that you can even get better at that is if you have a strategy in place, if you have your calendar laid out, if you know where you're going and you know why, and it's laid out very, very clearly and concisely, saying no becomes very, very easy, right? Always give the analogy. If I have a date night with my wife on Tuesday and Nate comes in and he says, hey, do you want to go out Tuesday night and we're going to go to the hockey game? I'm going to say no. It's very easy for me to say. I already have plans and priorities because I'm going out with my wife. But if I have no plans and I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs, I'm going to go out with Nate. Nate likes bourbon. This is probably going to end up in a wild night. That's not necessarily what I'm looking for. That's not moving me any closer to my goals, right? So understanding the ability and the power of saying no is one of the most crucial skill sets that you will need to be able to develop as an affiliate owner, and understanding how strategy works and the ability that it gives you to say no cannot be overstated, okay? I would have avoided many, many pain points inside of my entrepreneurial journey had I just said no to a lot of things. So I hope all of this helps. We're going to be doing a ton more content on all of this stuff. I hope this gives you a good framework on how to look at strategy, how to run your affiliate better, how to develop your staff, and all that kind of stuff. If you guys have questions about this, if you want to know more, if you think you need help, please, there's a link somewhere around this video. Click that link. We would be more than happy to help you guys run a better box, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. We appreciate you listening and choosing to have us help you in your passion for coaching and affiliate ownership. You can find more episodes just like this on all podcast platforms. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to us on any social media platforms, or you can visit www.besthouroftheirday.com to book a call. If you found this episode helpful for you, please share it so that we can help other coaches and affiliate owners to help build a bigger and stronger CrossFit community. Thanks for listening.